All right, welcome to a Father's Flame podcast. Today we have a special guest, Aaron Gordon. He is a second generation family business principal at Gordon Companies, which has been providing independent, trusted insurance services for over 50 years. He's been responsible for the transition and modernization of Gordon Companies, which has been more than doubled its firm's revenue. He is married with 5 children, which I can also relate to. So welcome, Aaron.
Thanks for having me. How many sons and daughters do you have?
I have 3 sons and so
My
ages
son,
13 to 3 down to 3.
my son would love to hang out with your family. I have 4
Oh,
daughters
dude.
and one son, ages 12 to 5 months, 6 months. So
Oh,
we're in
man,
it.
you're right. You're in it, right? Like me, man. And
I've been buying diapers consistently. I'm not going to say the brand because they don't sponsor me yet, but they should.
sure.
Since June 13th, 2011, straight.
Wow.
So I'm in
We
it.
just got out of that phase, and I mean, the pull-ups is the last phase of the last kid, right? Just for like
I
that
say once you
nighttime
get to
stuff.
like that nighttime only, you're in the
Yeah.
clear. Like I don't count that as
Oh,
diapers, but I have been buying straight since then. So I've whatever. It's all good.
man,
Blessed.
that's a good life. Yeah, you're blessed, man. That's awesome. So, let's dig in a little bit more about Gordon uh, companies, right? And I kind of want to touch on, like you said, I think this is something your family started, but you're bringing in that like modernization piece to your business. So why don't you
So
talk
yeah,
a little bit
100%.
about that?
So my father, he should rest in peace, started our business, purchased our business, or the majority of our business from his former employer, and started what became our current company on December 2nd, 1968. So a long time. He was here every single day until a short while before his passing. So literally 55 years built on his back. And my mother, she should live me well, who came on in 1982, right before my parents got married in 1983. And what's great about working in a family business, or kind of what I've done, and what my parents really ingrained in me, is that we can move forward and evolve,
Hmm.
but it's important in a business, especially a service driven business. We're in the property and casualty insurance advisory space. And so, yes, we do sell products, but we more provide trusted advice and services. And so you can modernize and use technology, but never lose sight of the past and never lose sight of what got us here. And what I found is that as the world has turned to the internet and commoditization and all things like that, as much as I want to be a super modern guy, and I think technically a millennial, I was born in the late 80s, or I'm definitely an embracer of technology, and my parents are certainly not big embracers of technology. I think that there's something so important about remembering the foundations of how things were created and then leveraging technologies to enhance that. So one very brief example is electronic signatures. Electronic signatures are great. Nobody in 2023 should have to print out and hand sign anything. But sending someone a random proposal and saying sign here on the dotted line, and then I'll get you your insurance, doesn't create a relationship and doesn't enhance your value proposition and enhance your legacy. So the way that in this very small example, the way that we've molded the generations is taking the foundations that my parents built this business on, of communication, of speaking to people, of explaining the coverages, of having them select what they want and what they need, and helping them through the challenges and the questions that they have. And then on the back end saying, hey, instead of me sending you a thing to print and sign, I'll just send you an e-signature. So it enhances the relationship, or it has a net effect of 0 on the relationship, in that it's not an opportunity. You coming to sign in documents is not going to influence your relationship, and it shouldn't. So therefore, you can use technology to make it easier for the consumer. But in the end of the day, you're still communicating, you're still available for them. And that's, in anything, that's how we built our business and our brand. And that's what's shown us the success. And we're not going to go away from that. My conviction on that is stronger now than it's ever been.
Yeah, I like that you are bringing this up. I've never really heard anyone talk about it, like, because I feel like our generation and maybe younger are kind of pushing, like, yeah, we want tech, bring in tech, bring in tech. And I appreciate that you just said, well, remember the beginnings, though. It is about relationship, because whether it's business, family, all friends, all that, comes back to relationship, right? Like it's not just
I-
about
I'll tell you
cranking out
something. I'll tell
dollars.
you something crazy. We have some very tech forward, new age businesses and their principles that we work with on both the personal and commercial side. And it was ironic to me because I have or somewhat, comical just because of everything that I'm focused on and we've been focused on for over 50 years, that when I first met the principal, he said to me, listen, I'm super busy. Text and email is the easiest way to get to me. Just like if you ever need anything, let me know. And I said, great, no problem. Thanks for letting me know of your preferences. Here's my cell if you ever need anything. Guy shows up into the warehouse one day and it's completely flooded because a sprinkler had run off in the middle of the night. Picked up the phone and called me, right? Even the guy who said he never wants to speak on the phone, in a moment of need, even the most modern people who swipe, who e-sign, who tech, e-file, Dropbox, don't send me a paper, I'm not even going to give you a mailing address type of a situation. When crisis strikes in my business, that's a claim. But if you you could be the most modern person in the world. If you have a tree hit your roof last night, which thankfully it didn't, so we'll use that example. Like, you're not going to wake up in the middle of the night and say, hey, I think I should text my insurance guy. I hope you don't. Even if you're a big text guy, pick up the phone. So I think that there's a way where especially in the moments of crises, especially in the moments of connection, which our generation is becoming so increasingly more void of, it's ironic and a little bit comical that the most tech focused people, there's like is it Elon Musk, one of the big tech guys, goes away into like silence or something. I know Aaron Rodgers just did it, but one of them goes and does their best thinking. Maybe Bill Gates said it. One of the big tech billionaires that
Sure.
their best ideas come from a week in the summer where they are in the mountains, disconnected from society. And yet during that time, they're hoping that all of us embrace their technology so they can get paid more money. But like even
Oh,
they
yeah.
know, even
How
the big tech people
interesting.
realize that like growth comes from disconnect a little bit from technology,
Ooh,
which is super
interesting.
interesting if you think about it. Like we need the technology,
Yeah.
right? Well, I'm never going to
Yeah.
shop away from Amazon. It's just not going to happen. Comes the same day here in New York. So like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but real development, real growth, personally and professionally, technology can't help with it.
I think that's a big piece that our generations now, right? They're growing up with tech are going to have to know that structure that you just said. Like, do you know part of your life it needs to where you have to disengage from this tech. You need to like it's almost like you're designed, right, to enjoy nature, to get out and unplug and then come back in refreshed, right?
It's we don't have to get into the debate about the value of public education or college or things like that. But what I think everyone can agree on is if you even look at college students, okay, we want to talk about the value, do they need it, Zoom, whatever. When someone's going to study something, they turn off all the tech, they turn the blinders on, and they look down at that book that they need to study. Or it could be a Kindle, it could be an iPad. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying if you
Yeah.
really want to focus on something, you need to study, you have an exam, you have something that to do. You're going to turn off all those things that you think enhance your life, quote unquote. You're not going to be on social media that night.
Yeah.
You're just going to put your phone down. And so isn't there something to that like real focus happens with disconnect? And
That's
that's where
good.
and by the way, that's where you can really internalize something. And I'm not knocking technology. Again, I love technology. iPhone, all I think we are luckier. My father just unfortunately passed away, but he was ill for 12 years on and off. And without modern technology and medicine, he would not have lived as long as he did at age 82. So I
Wow.
am as grateful as any human could be on planet Earth for modernity, and that we live in the United States of America. We have access to that technology and that healthcare and all that stuff that comes with it. I just think as parents, business owners, and influencers of our tribe on the home front and on the friend front of the next generation, we should be conscious of that
Man. Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, we're gonna have to roll into how that kind of goes in the family too. But I was having kind of a thought while you're saying that like technology is a tool, right? A phone is a tool, gives us access to the internet, all those things. And if you think of it in that sense, like it should have a proper place. Like I don't have my like tools; they should be in the garage, right? And then when I need them for the right application, I use them. And so I think there's going to be some education that needs to come and almost challenging the younger generations to like don't overuse this tool. Like, for instance, if it was like a drill, if that puppy's with you when you go to the store, when you're trying to sleep and go take it to bed with you, like, it's just not the proper place for that tool. Where technology is like, we're going to have to figure out these boundaries of where's the proper place. Like when we're working, if it's just technology and there's no relationship and you know what I mean? Like, that's
And
not
by the way, your
probably
life and relationships are not dependent upon any one of those tools. And I think that people lose
exactly.
sight of that. I think that people think that if I don't have this piece of technology, if my phone dies, again, assuming I'm not stuck in a rural nowhere in a emergency where I desperately need to communicate with people.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend who's in the insurance business. He lives in Mobile, Alabama, great guy. And he has a thing where he doesn't charge his phone on the weekends.
Hmm.
And the reason why he doesn't charge his phone on the weekend is because that doesn't mean he doesn't use it. That means he doesn't charge it. So Friday at whatever time it ends at 100%. And taking out, again, traveling or things like that, who does he spend his weekend with? His wife and his children. So it's nice to communicate with the outside world, but if it's Sunday at 5 p.m. his phone dies, like his wife knows where he is. If people need to get in touch with him, house phone, things like that. But like, it's like a forced, you know what I mean? And what that
Yeah.
shows is I'm not dependent upon that technology.
It's a forced discipline, really.
100%, exactly. So I think that there's something there as well.
Oh, that's great. So why don't you talk about for your company, you're bringing in technology, right? That maybe your parents weren't willing to do. So what was that like? And what type of things did you implement
Yeah.
and the
So
impact of it?
yeah. So a lot of it is early on. I was like, this place is broken. You guys have no idea what you're doing. You know, my father and I had like these conversations where he's like, built a pretty nice life for you, huh? Well, nice of you to come in here never thinking about actually having to, like, what will it mean to make payroll and pay the rent, and now you're going to comment about the things that I have that are broken. It's like pretty nice of you, which obviously was, when I took a step back and thought about it, it was like a really important life lesson. And then, but technology, I really just believe exactly what you just said. Technology is a tool and should be a relationship enhancer. And there's so many amazing things that can happen. I I don't want to be the guy who knocks technology, and I have a wife whose parents, my in-laws, who I am very close to, and she has one sister, and her only sister they all live in Israel, and I live in New York. And so without technology, we wouldn't be able to FaceTime or Zoom them on a daily or weekly basis. And my kids would not have the relationships that they have, and we wouldn't get to experience those life events from a distance. And by the way, without technology, it wouldn't be easy to come and go as needed with an expense, but the ability to really to bridge the gap of that distance, which is very profound. So I just think that we have to look at technology as relationship enhancers. And as long as we keep that, as you said, we view it as a tool and not the end, but the means to an end, then I think that it's great. And I think that we'll see amazing developments in that. I was listening to a podcast this week about the quote unquote dangers of AI. And I don't know a lot about AI, but I do know that if my life is dependent upon some piece of technology right now, that there is probably a chance, actually a very good chance, that AI will disrupt that. But if it's just a tool to enhance relationships and business operations and all things like that, I would be very happy if somehow AI figured out how to deliver a virtual thing to my clients and a virtual experience or whatever else, or give me client data or prospect data or things like that would further help me enhance the relationships, because then I would just use it as further leverage. I'm not scared of artificial intelligence.
I
The
like how
fact that AI has 10 times the IQ of any human on record doesn't scare me, because my life is not based on IQ. I've never asked a single person in my personal professional life what their IQ is. Have you? I'm saying,
I would
everyone's making
never
a big deal. You know
I
what I'm
don't even
saying?
know
But
what
like
mine is.
everyone's like, this is 10 times smarter than any human. Great. Like so is Google or was Google, like I don't know. So why is
Yeah.
that, so
Aaron, I
if that
really
makes
like
sense.
that you use the word enhancer. Like, so you used it with technology. Now you're saying AI. Like, you're like, I'm great with it as long as it enhances it. Like, and then, because to me, that's like this positive growth. It's good. It's creating something better. But then if it's not enhancing it, you might be using the tool wrong, right? Because you've neglected relationships, and whether it's business or, life. So I,
100%.
I like that you keep using that word. It's enhancing. Um, what did you do, like, to in implementing certain technology with your, you said your parents, and
Yeah,
and
so
what
we
was
do
like
we
the
do
result of
like
that?
we do e-signature, which didn't exist
Okay.
before. Our whole office is paperless.
Wow.
Online payments. We have an app. And again, all of these things are just ways that I can make you as my consumer or client, your life easier. We do a lot of text forward risk management, like drone shots of people's roofs through various carrier partners that we have. And other than that, like I don't have a phone answering system. There's no robots here. There's I'm in the insurance business, and insurtech is a big buzzword these days. And there's
Hmm.
billions of pieces of technology that I can be using. Some people say I should be using. Some people say I'm an idiot not using it. And it's funny because I sound like my dad when I'm like the carriers partners that we represent. They come to me and they say, "Hey, have you thought about this technology? Or why are you not doing this? Or you should do this, or you should do that." And I'm like, I think I've been pretty profitable for you over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 50 years. When my profitability drops, then we can discuss on the things that you think I might be doing wrong. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to take the suggestion and jump on it, but it just means that if it's going to stop me or my people from communicating and developing those relationships with our clients, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. Every single personal client that comes our way, the you make an introduction as a realtor, as a mortgage broker, as a current client, the first email that they're going to get from me or the salesperson on my team, of which we have very few because we believe our family wants to know everybody who we do business with, is, "Hey, when do you have a few minutes to chat?" Now you may write, "I'm closing tomorrow and totally forgot about my insurance. Can we just close this quickly?" But that's your choice. You file a claim, you're going to get a call from me. You may write, "Hey, I'm stuck underwater. Text me," but you're going to get a phone call every single time. And it's I think that the phone is the most powerful piece of technology we have, and nobody uses it. It's called an
Man.
iPhone. It's called an
Yeah.
iPhone, and nobody uses the phone. And by the way, it's just more efficient. We can get super practical on that. You can get done in like 30 seconds what takes 12 emails. It's funny. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you about using the phone as a relationship enhancer. So I've been married, thankfully, actually 13 years today. And so my wife has seen various natural disasters come through, and I'm in the insurance business. And she recently remarked, it was 2 years ago during Superstorm Ida, where she was listening to me in the middle of the night talk to a bunch of people about the problems that they were having and the water damage that they had to their homes. And she pointed out after like 3 or 4 of these calls, she's like, "You're not really doing anything." And I said, "Exactly. It's pouring rain. All the streets are flooded. I can't get a person into these people's houses to pump out the water. In fact, I'm telling them not even to try, and we'll figure it out later tonight or tomorrow morning in the middle of the night or in the morning. There's no You going down with your wife and kids with a bunch of buckets when you have 3 feet of water in your basement is going to do nothing. Might make you feel a little better, but it's not going to do anything practically."
Hmm.
And I said to her that she's exactly right. I was doing absolutely nothing except for listening and providing support. So when you tell me that your basement is flooded and I say it's going to be okay, we've had 50,000 of these claims in our career, and this is the process. And by the way, it's going to be painful. I just want it to be as least painful as possible. It's not going to be painless. When you have to move your wife and kids, even if I tell you I can get the Airbnb next door for as long as you want, it's not going to be like living in your home. Even if I say I'll pay for your takeout food for however long it takes you to get back into that kitchen that was destroyed. The first few days it'll be cool, then it'll get annoying, and you'll wish that you could just, make your eggs on your stove or whatever. So it oftentimes you don't even have to provide solutions, but just communication and relationships go a really long way.
So good. And happy anniversary, by the way. And that's awesome.
Thank you.
The 13 years. Yeah. When you're talking about the phone like that, you're really speaking my language, because man, sometimes I get frustrated texting and emailing. I'm like, man, I could tell you correctly, because I don't always convey right with writing as well as other people. So I love that.
By the way, I'm not even talking
guy.
about tonality, right? People are like, you sounded angry, and you're like, they just didn't come through in text. I didn't even get there. If I need to get 5 pieces of information from you, and I send you a long text with those, 5 bullet points, you might miss one, which means I need to follow up. If I just called you and said, hey, I need done. 45 seconds later, talk to you later. Done.
Yeah, I like
hey, what do you want for dinner? We could go back and forth on text, or I could say I'm in the store. I'll pick it off the shelf for you. So
that's awesome. I want to touch on something that I read in your bio. Accomplishments was you're one out of only 4 insurance advisors with a dual designation. Can you explain those two things real quick?
Sure.
Curiosity.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I'm a little bit of an insurance nerd, as anyone who's ever listened to me before knows, or for your new listeners, I was forced into this business by my parents in utero. I'm just kidding. I chose to come into this business, but I value education, and as a means to the end of being the best insurance advisor that I can be for my clients. And so there are very few insurance agents nationwide that focus both commercial and personal and can kind of dig into those specialties. So one of our carrier partners, Chubb Insurance, has a program at Wharton for personal insurance. And then there's a program at Carnegie Mellon for cyber insurance, which is huge now, cyber security insurance and cyber liability. And so when I had the opportunity to do the personal one, I did it. And then when I saw they had the cyber one, I volunteered to go. And so I'm hoping they come up with another one, because then maybe I can be one of one. But it's just the constant drive to growth is something that's ingrained in me by my parents. And so if I have an opportunity to learn, even if I get one nugget, I'll put the 9 months of work in the term paper. So I'm one of only 4 that did both of those. And I think I should actually reach out to them and make sure it's still 4. It might be 5 at this point, but it's
sure.
There's tens of thousands of agents. So that's what I would throw out.
And then you do insurance in 40 different states, right? And this is for small businesses, essentially.
Small businesses, individuals, mid-sized businesses also. We work with very few public companies, because usually when they go public, they want to work with a big name public agent. But the funny thing is that everybody tells me that small businesses are not revenue producing, and they're a waste of time and the amount of effort that we put in. And every time that I come around on that, and I'm like about to say, yeah, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore, one of those small businesses that I should have written off becomes really big. And it's like a small business, especially on the insurance side, once you sign it up earlier on, it kind of moves autopilot. So we don't do benefits or life insurance or anything like that. We partner with people that do, but we do the property and casualty side. So the business contents, the liability, asset protection and things like that. So it's just hilarious how people are willing to write off the little guy. And it's,
sure.
I will not lie to you and tell you it's a lot of work. It's a little bit of work, like 12 minutes the first year. Then it somewhat goes on autopilot, and it's really awesome when one of those clients makes it. And when they don't, that's life. So if they go out of business the first year, yeah, I probably lost money. It probably takes about 5-6 years to make money on a small business. But I'm a small business. I would want people to write me off. So that's my, view of things.
That's good, man. We got to support the small businesses, because that's like the backbone of what this country is really built off of. All these small businesses, running. And I know there's giant corporations, but yeah, that's I'm an advocate for small businesses. I came
what this country was built on.
Exactly. I came from having a job as a firefighter for 13 years, and then
thank you for that,
man. And I just saw that, you know what, I actually have more of a passion. I want to own our own businesses and go that route. And I do want to encourage people in that. And if you do have a business, you need to talk to an insurance guy like Aaron, because you don't just go out there without that, because you're not protecting your family, you're not protecting your assets and your future. So I'm a big advocate for insurance, multiple types of insurance. So
Thanks for that plug. You're hired.
yeah, man. And then, well, let's just add to it. If people need insurance, where do they, or need to get a hold of you, where can they do that?
I'm at on every social platform under NY Risk Advisor, so at NY Risk Advisor, or you can find me. Our website is gordoncompanies.com, but you can find me at any social, and I will reach out to you. Or my email address is aaron@gordoncompanies.com, AARON@GORDONCOMPANIES.com. That's how you get to me. So
Awesome. And all that'll be in the show notes. So I want to pivot a little bit, just into a little bit of family and faith. Just, we talked right before we got started. And also in the intro, you got your family about the same size and ages of mine. But so let's dig into this a little bit. So you're Orthodox Jew, right?
that's me.
And we didn't capture this earlier, but let's talk a little bit of something that really stands out, is the Sabbath, right? And that's like not a tradition, but this just goes back, I guess it's a tradition, but thousands and thousands of years. And that's something I could really relate to, because we more in the last 10, 12 years have seen the value that's in the Torah, in the scriptures, and they're like ancient writings, but still so valid for today. And so let's dig into that a little bit. How has the Sabbath been for you? Because you probably grew up with it. Now you're passing it on to your children. And it's just part of the interaction for family and your community.
So I'll tell you something interesting. I actually did not grow up with the Sabbath. So we weren't
you didn't?
as observant when I was much younger, and then we kind of became more observant over time. And what's interesting about that is that there are a lot of very, very specific, many, many, many laws relating to Sabbath observance. But the core idea and philosophy of Sabbath observance has to do with the day of rest. And there's a buzzword now called recharging, right? People should recharge. People should take time to reevaluate and recharge. And regardless of religious observance, so we can get into the nitty-gritty of what it means to be an Orthodox Jewish person on the Sabbath and not engaging with a single piece of technology. We don't even flip light switches. So there's no electricity usage. We use electricity, we just don't engage with it. So if the light's on, it's on for 25 hours. If it's off for 25 hours. But the most important thing about that, regardless of religious observance, is that the world as it exists in the 6 days of Sunday through Friday does not exist in the same way from sundown Friday night to sundown Saturday night. So I will have no idea what happens in the world for 25 hours. An extreme of that, which is super powerful if you think about it, is like good and bad can happen around you and you still have to recharge and disconnect. So when my wife is 9 months pregnant and she could theoretically go into labor on the Sabbath, yes, medical reasons, so medicine and saving life and all that transcends all of this. So we get in a car, we get in a cab, we go to the hospital, and we take care of the immediate medical needs. But if and when that child is born, until sundown Saturday, my entire family will not know. There's no using the phone.
Wow.
Which the irony of that, or the interesting thing about that, is it's crazy to think about being a parent and not knowing that you had a grandchild. It's crazy to think about being and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, because there's a lot of great things about engaging with that and being able to call your parents and say, hey, you had a new grandchild, or call your kids and tell them. But there's something super powerful. None of my kids were born on the Sabbath or a Jewish holiday. Jewish holidays are exactly the same as the Sabbath in terms of this point. But like, it would have been super powerful if, like, in the middle of the night, Friday night, my wife goes into the hospital and we have those 18 hours, like after a baby's born, of like just embracing and engaging in the moment. And even if somebody tells you that they're going to be mindful and they're not going to reach out to anyone for 20 minutes after their kid is born, a half hour after their kid is born, eventually they're going to crack. And so there's that recharging. And there's the flip side. Someone can pass away suddenly on the Sabbath or not so suddenly. And according to the letter of law, unless the person's making a life or death decision, medical decision, you would have no idea. My next door neighbor lost his mother, unfortunately, in a house fire on a Friday night, and he didn't find out till 25 hours later. So that means that he was celebrating and engaging with his children and his wife, not knowing that he had just lost his mother and, was in an intense period of mourning and suffering, obviously. So I just think that there's something super powerful, and of any faith, by the way. I don't want to say we all agree, because that's a really dangerous thing to say, but most religions at their core believe in the Old Testament. Where things change is, did things come after that? New Testament, Quran, things like that. But all of those religions go back to the 7 days of creation, and the very foundation of the world being created was a time to recharge. Now, you could say in the modern world, maybe it's not 25 hours, maybe it's 24 hours, maybe it's 2 days, maybe it's Saturday, maybe it's Sunday, maybe it's Friday, maybe it's Tuesday. We can get into all of that. But if a person believes in the 7 days of creation, and again, we don't need to get into the biblical philosophy of, was it 7 24-hour days like we have today? But at the very core, 1/7 of that structure was created for rest and recharge. That's it. So you can choose, again, you can choose how you want to define rest and recharge, what day it is, how long it is, how you participate in that. But God and the Bible invented it. Now everyone's talking about a work-life balance. God invented the work-life balance when he, with the capital H, capital E, took one after creating the world on the 7th day. And God rested.
Exactly. He set the example. And you kind of said, like, if you choose to kind of like partake in that, and it is kind of your choice. Like, and I didn't really know anything about it. Probably, I mean, I've heard about it, and then only like 12, 13 years ago, it was like, I think this might be good for us. And we can focus on family. We can focus on God's word. And just, you're right, decompress. And it's, for us, as we've been trying to do that, it's just been a kind of a roller coaster of, I don't know, things come up on that time and things don't. And anyways, but
so, and by the way, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I'll tell you what's interesting.
Yeah.
I bet if you did a poll of people who have tried this in whatever form, nobody's going to tell you it was a bad thing. Nobody. Now, you could say, again, we tried it, and 3 months in, we realized that our kids were missing a lot of school things because the schools that they were in, it was on a Sunday, and they were missing a lot of life events. And therefore we needed to tweak our view of observing this. But as part of that, you probably would not have said, but the time that we observed and recharged and rested was bad for us. There were other practical things that made it not feasible, but like, anybody would say that this is a good idea. How you implement it is up to you and your family, but like, that's what I would say.
So what are some things you guys do as a family that you've really found beneficial with yours?
So one of the beauties of being of very observant Orthodox Judaism is that there are some strict things that are set in stone. So we turn off from the outside world, technology, on Friday at sundown. We pray. Some people go to synagogue, some people pray at home, and then we have a family meal. We have 2 family meals, one Friday night and one Saturday during the day. And we have friends over sometimes, in the community. We don't use automobiles or modes of transportation, so you have to be able to walk it. The other thing is that it's an opportunity to have people in our home and have our parents or our cousins or aunt and uncle. And then if you don't travel, that means you got to stay if you don't live local. So it's like a built-in family time and things like that. And it's
That's great.
the thing that my wife and I have done, and again, this obviously doesn't work when someone's staying in our home, but in terms of communal meals and friends and things like that, is if we know that there's going to be 2 every Sabbath, one of them is quote unquote sacred and it's just for our nuclear family. And it could be that one week, my daughter goes to her friend's house, which is totally fine. They go away for the weekend or things like that. Or my son, but that understanding that also, by the way, not to go back to something we discussed already, but also really helps you professionally in that I don't ever want to miss anything really important in my kids' lives. But if I know that I've had a busy week at work and there's something that's like, my wife calls me today and says that something happened with one of my kids in school, and obviously it doesn't even dealt with in this moment, but there's kind of something going on in the background. I know at the very least, I'll be able to sit with my son or daughter at that point on Friday evening, just the 2 of us, as everyone else is playing a board game or whatever else, and deal with that issue that's bothering them. And therefore, what it doesn't allow the outside noise to spin out of control because you're stuck. You're stuck. I mean, you could fill the time with having friends over and making sure your neighbors are always in your house and your kids are always occupied with video games. But week after week, month after month, it's just going to force you to. We have so many books in our house because we don't use electricity on the Sabbath. So like Kindles and iPads are out. My kids use books. Our neighborhood library is super busy because we live in a heavily Orthodox Jewish community. And while other libraries are going out, people need books, the actual book, not the content, the actual book. And we play board games like Monopoly and like Othello. And my kids come up with these ridiculous things and we build forts. And the interesting thing is we do none of that on a Sunday as much as we try. None.
Interesting.
Because life just gets busy. There's Little League and there's birthday parties and there's all that. It's hard, and I wish we did more of it. I wish on Tuesday night we could have family game night. And by the way, we didn't even get into the relationship between my wife and I, which is we both run. She's running quite the busy household, and we're partners and everything like that. And I'm in this business and everything's going on, but in the end of the day, that 25 hours, part of that is carved out for us because our kids go to sleep and neither one of us can look at our phone.
That's good.
I was listening to someone, you might like this technology hack. I was listening to, it doesn't work as well in 2023, but I was listening to a podcast recently and the guy said that he noticed that he and his wife were struggling when smartphones first came out, communicating with each other, or when the computers first became accessible. So he got one of those old school timers, the one that rotates around. We use a lot of them because the lights have to go out and they have to go on in the morning. And he attached it to his internet router. And every single night at 10:30 p.m., his internet goes out until 6 a.m. Phone works, emergency, you can call. But what that created was he and his wife now realize that if it's 10:15, you got to wrap up what you're doing because that internet's not going to work in 15 minutes. So I do that on Fridays. Come sundown, my phone literally needs to be turned off. That's it. Power off for 25 hours. I won't even know if I have an emergency if you're trying to reach me. Unless you send a carrier pigeon, you show up at my door, I literally will not even know. So that really has helped my wife and I too. It's it's a built-in date night with the kids, so it's not exactly date night, so we still do that. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even when my parents or in-laws babysit our kids when we go out, just 2 of us for date night, you kind of still have your phone a little bit because we have 5 kids. What if something happened? What if one of them has a nosebleed or the baby can't sleep, or check the cameras to make sure the baby's sleeping in the baby monitor. You kind of have that, it's kind of still clicking on you. But you know how many phantom vibrates I get on the Sabbath? Have you ever tried going without your phone for a long period of time?
A few times, but you're kind of motivating me to do that again.
You ever get the phantom vibrate?
Yeah, occasionally. I'm not as busy and sought after as, as you are. So,
No, but it's just like I wonder. Oh my gosh, is my phone ringing? And then you realize your phone's not even in your pocket.
oh,
That's what I'm saying. It's a phantom vibrate. Like you don't even have your phone in your pocket,
yeah.
and you
I don't
feel
know if it's
something
like when
vibrating,
my leg moves, I'm like, how did that, how's that possible?
and then like, and I forget. Like you have a momentary lapse forgetting it's a Sabbath. And I stick my hand in my pocket. Like, oh my gosh, did my phone just vibrate?
And
And
it's
I'll
not
tell you
even
something
in there.
interesting. When my wife was due with our kids, so the synagogue is a couple of hours. So I go to the synagogue, and obviously, again, as I mentioned, life and health and all that is above all. So I carried my cell phone with me in my pocket because if she needed to get a hold of me, it was obviously on silent, and I didn't touch it because you can't touch it. It's in my pocket, and I felt like there was something missing in my prayers on the Sabbath because, like, she could have called me. So therefore, because it could ring, you're somewhat focused on the fact that if it rings, I have to feel it because that means that I have to deal with something. When
Hmm.
now it's not in my pocket because it can't ring because it can't, you know. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So
I, I like how you're saying it's almost like the Sabbath is also a relationship enhancer because instead of like all the things you can do, like you're saying, sports and things that with the kids or with your wife all week, it's at that day that you can like do the sit down, or you can, have the games, and it's focused, it's family, and it's
by the
different
way, it
than the
also
other
teaches our
days.
kids how to be good friends
Tell me
because
more
they're
about that.
friends because when they're local, they're friends in the neighborhood, when they have a play date on Saturday afternoon, you know what they have to do? They can do like 3 or 4 things. Board games, they can play ball in the yard, or they can go on the swing set. We don't even ride our bikes on the Sabbath. That's it. So the lost art of building a fort out of boxes and random, ottomans and blankets and the back of chairs and stools that you and I grew up on. It's not a lost art with my kids. It's
That's
not a lot.
cool.
Their friendships are not on a phone. There's no iPads. There's no, they and because they're in school, the interesting thing is because they're in school full time, 5 days a week, that's really where they play with their friends is on the Sabbath, which is when they can't use that stuff. So it's like being on a perpetual airplane stuck next to your best friend. Imagine what you could catch up with that. So,
That's something for people to note, like having a day with almost out technology, like the power of that for these younger generations that are like, I grew up and the internet showed up when I was like, I remember 12, 13, 14, right? And so it was new. It was cool. Now these guys are now like these generations are being born with it's, dude, they've been playing with it since they 2 years old. So they need some kind of structure, like even the Sabbath, to like, all right, here's some boundaries. We don't need it. Like for 6,000 years has gone on with, we didn't need it. So
I
anyways,
felt I felt super old when I informed my kids last week or 2 weeks ago that when I was a kid, I can remember before there were cell phones, that the only way we communicated with our friends after school was on the house phone, right? And when my parents needed to use the internet for work, that clogged up the house line, the internet line. The internet took the phone line. I'm sorry.
oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, if my dad had a big meeting the next day and he was working with my mom on a presentation, we couldn't use the phone. We couldn't communicate with our friends. We had the TV, but I couldn't talk to them about the Knick game. That was back when the Knicks were good. Well, they're back being
Sure.
good now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
Well, no, I love talking about the Sabbath. That is a very intriguing thing for me. That's why I spent so much time on it. I I think it is part of your legacy too that you're passing on, and it's kind of a community and cultural thing, but um, that is going on to your kids. And to me, I just seems highly valuable.
and what's amazing in that value is that it has um, very little. I don't want to say nothing, but it has very little to do with religion in its practice, right? We haven't discussed prayer, we haven't discussed Bible study, we haven't discussed any of that yet, which can be part of it, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't. It's like, I see these people who live in vans traveling the world, and they, have to refill, and I'm van life, or these people that decide to leave the big city and go off grid and live, I'm kind of like going down these YouTube rabbit holes. And that's the same thing, right? It doesn't have to be religion driven. It's the same thing of just realizing that, as you said, humanity has existed for 6,000 years. And we're doing a lot to destroy it. And if we get back to the core principles that made it what it is, someone recently told me that they think that if not for the advances in medicine, like right now we're seeing somewhat all-time life expectancies. But what we've done to humans should really decrease the life expectancy. We've just been lucky that medicine has advanced as quickly as it has, but our diets are improper. Nobody exercises, nobody works in the field, nobody walks to work, nobody does any of that. We sit behind computers all day. So we're inherently less healthy than we were before. We just got lucky that medicine advanced too.
Interesting.
And that has nothing to do with religion, by the way. Everyone wants to live longer. So literally has nothing to do with that.
Sure.
So,
man, that's interesting. No, it is fun. Like we're figuring things out. I think, our generation, we are learning, like, how do we use technology and balance and still have a good life? How do we use new technology, AI? There's more coming, and we're gonna have to figure out how to balance it.
You want to know something that'll be
Let it
super interesting with
enhance.
that? I'll tell you what's going to
Yeah.
be super interesting with that. If AI does what everybody says it's going to do, the average person will have so much more time on their hands. People who have never spent time on their own or with their family, that could be a very bad thing, very dangerous thing. If AI makes it so that when you finish your laundry detergent, it automatically gets ordered from your favorite store, and it knows the groceries that you get, so therefore you save whatever the number is, 20 hours a month on shopping, because you think, oh, my shirt just ripped, I need a new shirt. That means you'll have 20 hours more in your day. What are you going to do at that time? That's scary for people who have never been mindful. But I'm pretty stoked about that. Like, I would love if I could snap a finger. Think about the amount of time I waste filling my car with gas. If I can get an electric vehicle that the roof is solar, like Tesla's working on, then I will have so much more time. I'll never have to stop on my way home from gas, which means I can get 5 minutes a week back more with my kids at bedtime. That excites me. But some people, if some people run to the gas station to escape from everything else that's going on, that's going to scare them. And it's like that with everything. So that's what I think people are scared of with AI. If you really get into the emotional part of it, is we're going to have to focus on faith. We're going to have to focus on family. We're going to have to focus on all those things.
Yeah. Relationships
And all that, because we're just going to have so much time, or we're going to end up sitting in basements playing video games all day.
And just plugged into like the new
Exactly.
Apple's got their like thing they just released yesterday. I forgot the name of it.
So,
no, that's good. That's interesting, because having more time to a certain person can create more good things, more relationships, more, maybe it's more things in your faith. Maybe you're reading or whatever it is. Or to some people who haven't learned the relationship side, that it's going to be like, you're just going to zone out into more technology, or you don't know what to do. So there's almost like this new industry where we can maybe have events more, because you have more leisure time, right? More, I don't know, maybe like it's dancing, or maybe it's like you go and you have time for more of that. So time will tell.
You just reminded me of an amazing quote from my father. He should rest in peace, about faith and family, and a little bit about finances. Fitness, we're not so big on. But when my father was recently towards the end of his life, the last year and a half of his life, he unfortunately had a form of lung cancer. And we spent a lot of time together. We worked together. We're very close. I live 20 minutes from him. And he once said to me that he wasn't scared to die. But the reason why he didn't want to die or leave this world, or leave his family, or leave his, what was going on, was he said a lot of people don't have such a great life. So death scares them because it's an unknown, but they're not really missing much. He said, I have such a great life of faith, of an incredible family. It's 17 grandchildren, 5 children, 17 grandchildren, an amazing wife, my mother. Great business that he literally built from the first client that we still have today, 55 years. He said to me, I have a great life. I want more of that. That's why I don't want to die. I'm not scared of death. I'm like, I have a great life. I just want to hang out with my grandkids. And there's something profound to that if a person builds a life mindfully, their bucket is so full. That's why life is so great. Who would want to leave that? Whatever your ultimate goals are, a person should enjoy them. And if a person is properly anchored, that's how they can do it, and properly focused, then they can at the end of their life.
That's great. I've been challenged this last year too, multiple people speaking into my life too, about like designing your life the way you want it, right? And sometimes you take life where it's like, I just need to get a job. I just need this to happen. Like, and you're making decisions because you have to. But at some point you almost need to like contemplate and say, no, this is where I really want to be. This is ideal. And kind of like what your dad had created, like, that's what I want. I want that where I'm like in my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And this is exactly what I wanted. There's peace. There's great relationships. Money is not a problem. It's just part of what we do. It's just a tool. And no, that's exactly what I envision too for myself.
How many people, obviously money is very important, and that's important. So how many people, if you told them whatever your number is, not my number, your number could be $1 billion. It could be whatever you want. It could be 100 billion. It could be 10 billion. It could be 1,000. Doesn't matter. How many people, if you told them, I'll give you your number right now, cash, no taxes, here you go, would actually change their life to do only what they like, and only what they've wanted, and only what they should know that they wish that they had more time for? Again, if you love what you're doing and your job is purpose, you could do that for free at that point, right? I've given you the $1 billion or the 100 billion, whatever the number is. Mm-hmm. But how many people set financial goals for themselves and say, okay, when I get this, I'll slow down. Or when I'm in this shape, I'll focus on my family. That means that in the back of their mind, they know that their family is important, but they'll always find an excuse not to make it important, or not to, And I think that there's just something there where it's like, another thing that's missing in our world is accountability. Like, wouldn't it be awesome if you had those goals, those financial goals, you achieve them, hopefully very soon, God willing, and like your wife said to you, like, Jeff, no, we're 6 months sabbatical, a year sabbatical, same thing, right? Bible, a year sabbatical, work really hard. And what does God promise? If you work really hard in the 6 years and you actually do the sabbatical thing, you'll see greater prosperity in the 6th and the 8th year, which will inspire you and remind you of why you took off the 7th year. Same thing. But how many people would actually take that sabbatical to do whatever they want? By the way, it could be sports, it could be spending time with family, it could be building a car, it could be whatever you wish you could do. But you use the excuse of being too busy and needing to chase financial freedom, which I'm not saying is easy. But how many people would then just continue in the rat race, and because they're too scared of the unknown of like actually doing what they want or love?
That's deep, Aaron.
It's true though, right?
Yeah, you're hitting on it. Yeah.
I had a rabbi who once said something super profound to me. He said, we every single day we pray and ask God to send us the Messiah. And whatever that means, how many people, if Messiah came, would say, hold on 1 second, I just need to finish this. I'm working on this project. Just give me a second. Like, today's not good. Maybe tomorrow.
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And man, it's hard. Like, imagine you're about to close the biggest business deal of your life, and in the Jewish Orthodox faith, the Messiah comes and takes us all on wings of eagles to Jerusalem, and we rebuild the temple, how many people would say, I just need one more day? Like, I got to finish up some things over here. And you're like, hold on, your whole life you've been dreaming about this. You've heard about this. We have the pictures in our, we teach our kids about the building of the third temple and what it was like when we had the temple and the first temple, the second temple, and how great it was and the bliss that there was and all that. And then people are like, nope, I'm busy, God.
Yeah, I would hate to say that I would think I would do the right thing, but I don't really actually know. Like, cause like the temptation to not turn it off, like that driving towards success and acquisitions and, and wealth. Like, I've been struggling with this too. It's like, there's gotta be a way to shut it off. And I do think God put in scripture, like he designed times to shut off, like you just said, the shemitah, that's every 7 years the whole land rests. But not only that, is you got a weekly Sabbath, you have 7 or more, really holidays where you're not really supposed to work, you're supposed to rest. And it's like he has all these shut off times, like that we're really intended for, to kind of regroup and focus. But sometimes it's hard to walk in that structure. People don't even have that structure, right? That don't celebrate those things. So it's a new thing. But you're right. It goes back to accountability. And I think that's one strength, I think, of your community, the Jewish community, is you've had that for thousands and thousands of years, this like same structure that is genius because God gave it to you. It's not that the Jews are genius, it's that their God is a genius, and the scriptures are just unmatched. It's like the engineer and the designer gave you the instruction book and said, this is what's best, right? And if you follow this, you will be blessed.
And it's
And if
worked,
you
by the
don't,
way.
yeah,
It's worked, by the way.
yeah, and it also
So,
goes back to the point of like, what we were talking about earlier in the internet, like what did people used to do, like before the internet, like technology, like, because life's been going on for so long and it's been good for people.
and they weren't always cavemen, by the way, but they were that worked too. But it's like,
Yeah,
your and my grandparents were not cavemen and women, and that wasn't that
no,
long ago.
exactly. So, well, Aaron, it's been just a pleasure to have you on. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I love the industry that you're in. Like I already said, I'm a huge advocate for insurance. I love that we were able to talk also about the discipline and having, Sabbath and just the value of those things, and integrating technology and just what life's been like for, before technology. So,
I wanted to make sure to thank you for having this podcast, because as after you reached out to me, I didn't know the podcast existed, and I've become a little bit of a junkie of the podcast over the last number of weeks, because I'm in a 1 year period of mourning after the passing of my father. One of the things I'm not allowed to do is listen to music, and I commute for 2 hours a day, 1 hour each way. So I become a much more of a podcaster, or podcast
okay.
listener, I should say. And I love what you're doing, and I appreciate that you're having the difficult but so super important conversations.
That's
So I
awesome.
wanted to thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, no, this podcast is really like, it's almost like me in the midst of being a father, and you guys and I'm getting counseling and learning like every time I talk to somebody, and so I'm just capturing it. So I
And
think
how lucky
it's,
are your kids that you're recording all this for them?
and yeah, and I hope my grandkids and everybody, this is a legacy that I get to leave too, and hopefully help beyond my family, multiple families. So,
100%.
yeah, appreciate what you've shared. Um, so I just want to challenge everybody, like I do every week. It's put the effort into your faith, family, finances, and fitness. Like you've heard from Aaron, like this has just been, to me, a gold nugget of information, like on the Sabbath portion of using technology appropriately to enhance, not to be a detriment to your relationships and your business. Use those tools appropriately. Put the energy and effort into be growing as a man, as a father, as a business owner, in whatever place you're at, so that in a year from now, you're thanking yourself that, yes, I put the energy in, I put the effort in, and I made the changes necessary to design my life so that it is the way that brings the most peace and joy to me and my family and my relationship. So with
Amen
that,
to that.
yeah, we will see you guys on the next one.